Try again.
Check 1 2 1 1 1 check.
There we go.
1 2.
Yeah. Where were we? This is Glenn Stevenson with Johnny J. Armijo, November 25th? 6th at the Los Padillas Community Center, the South Valley.
2002.
Thanks, Johnny.
Levels okay?
Keep talking.
1 2 check 1 2
Just
1
keep
1
talking.
1. All right.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, part of what we were talking about is, or that I was talking about, is that I'm going to take you back. My dad was in a band, several bands actually. He played with the Don Lesman band, and he was in the 44th Army band with the National Guard, J.J. Armijo, Johnny J. Armijo. Anyway, from him and his band, he was a sax player, alto tenor, and what's the other one? Clarinet. Played a little bit of piano. But anyway, I guess some of my inspiration and my musical ability came from my pop. And I would go with him to some of the gigs that they'd have with Don Lesman, and they were a larger, at the time, you know, they were an 8, 9-piece orchestra. That's what they used to call them, orchestras. And my inspiration for music came from my dad. And I, for whatever reason, became involved with banging around things at the house and drums. And during my dad's heyday, there were several orchestras. They used to call them bands at the time, orchestras. And I became involved when I was, 14 years old. And he bought me my first drum set. It was one of those huge old big old bass drums with the light in it. You know, way talk about back in the day. I think one cymbal and maybe a snare. But that's how I started off in music. And we had a group called the Corvalles. So many different groups. And then
when were the Corvalles?
Oh gosh. '60?
1960,
maybe,
okay.
maybe 1960, and maybe 59, 47, maybe around there. But it was just a little kind of put together band, and that's how I started really liking music. And I'm kind of going in fragments here, but I always was banging on stuff, and I liked the sound of different pieces of different objects, wood and metal, and just the different sounds that it would produce as I'd use knives. And I was in the 7th grade, I believe, at Ernie Pyle, and I was in the PE class, and there was a talent show coming up, and the coach said the guy who was going to play the bongos, there was 2 brothers, the Sigling brothers, and they played guitar, and they'd been taking lessons forever. And they were very, very accomplished on their guitars. And they were going to play with a bongo player.
Was that like Jim Sigling?
Jim Sigling, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you know Jim?
Yeah, he did.
And so they were going to play with his bongo player, and I didn't know what was going on. But anyway, one day in PE, the coach said this so-and-so, whoever it was going to play the bongos, came in and he had a cast on his arm. He broke his arm. And the coach says, does anybody want to play bongos, with the Sigling brothers? And da-da-da-da-da-da. And I had always banged around, so I, reluctantly, because I was always intimidated by the coaches, I reluctantly raised my hand, and we practiced a couple times. After a couple rehearsals, it was talent show time, and I remember backstage, and these girls were singing these beautiful, black girls singing this beautiful melody, and like, he's so fine, those kind of stuff, and all of these, and it just that atmosphere and everything was just kind of like started the juices flowing in me. And then it was our turn to get up, and we got up, and there were the bleachers. Ernie Pyle looked like 9,000 people, probably 400. There were the bleachers, and we started tequila, doom 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 doom. So I started playing, and we finished, and they stood up, and yeah, that's it. I was hooked. From that point on, I was hooked. And it was after that I started the groups, and the Chekkers, Thechekkers. I'll talk about that in a minute. But started them off in, it must have been 63, somewhere around there. And it was all guys that I had grown up with. Jack Ayala, who I grew up with. Jerry Pacheco, who I had grown up with.
Are they still around?
Yep. Actually, Jack and Jerry are still playing with the fabulous Chekkers now, currently. Alfred Romero, David Nuñez, and David's been around forever. He was a city cop, just recently retired. Well, not recently, probably 3 years ago. But that was the 5 of us: Jack Ayala, Jerry Pacheco, Johnny J, Alfred Romero, and David Nuñez. We were the original Chekkers. There was a group in Los Angeles that was called the THEE Midnighters when we were coming up, and we always used to like the LA sound, so we copied the THEE, even though people say, well, that's not right. It didn't matter, hey, the Midnighters were the Midnighters. And I don't know how I came up with a double K in regards to the Chekkers, maybe just different or whatever, but that's how the name originated. And we used to play the Peacock, the Cole Hotel, the Alvarado, all of the old hotels in Burgett. And of course we played for Albuquerque High, St. Mary's. I remember Albuquerque High, the Cordellas, Tri-High Y was a group of girls, almost like a fraternity or sorority in regards to Albuquerque High. And my girlfriend happened to be a cheerleader in that group, so we'd get the gigs. And Freddie Chavez was with us after David left. Freddie was with us for a while. We used to do a lot of the soulful stuff. James Brown, Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, all of the good stuff. Fam, all that stuff.
None of which is Hispanic New Mexico.
Yeah, exactly. And it was our interpretation of how we grew up and where we grew up. I mean, Jack, Jerry, myself, all from the South Valley. Freddie was South Valley-ish, Broadway, and so our interpretation of what we really liked, because we also, Albuquerque is multicultural, and I mean, where I grew up, on La Vega and Riverside, it was Hispanic, Black, a few white folk, David Brown, some of the Browns down the street, but so we grew up with multiracial, situations, and we were not even, I was going to say tolerant, but it's not even tolerant. That's just the way it was.
We've always had that community on Hardy too.
Yeah, it was never, oh, he's black, or oh, he's Hispanic, or oh, he's white, or we were all there living together, and it was, it was the hood, there was no thought process about that. We were just all neighbors and friends and buddies, and we'd go have fun together and get in trouble together and do everything else together. But anyway, part of what I was talking about was in regards to the bands in Albuquerque. There's a culture there, and it started way before the Chekkers, that have really inspired many people. There was a guy in Albuquerque that wanted to be a Chekker, but never was quite good enough at the time, and his name was Randy Castillo. And Randy Castillo was a decent little drummer, but he sat in with the Chekkers one time, and it was like I was saying, that's you, keep trying, buddy, keep trying, you get it going. Randy went in with Nick Luchetti and took lessons from Nick Luchetti for 2 years, and we didn't know where Randy was. Randy came out after 2 years of lessons, sat in with the Chekkers, and forget it. Talk about a phenomenal drummer. Well, Randy then he hit the road and went to Denver and stuff, and Randy unfortunately passed away this last year from cancer. But Randy was probably one of the biggest musical success stories. Played with Ozzy Osbourne, played with I can't remember all the bands he's played with, but he hit the big time, and unfortunately the big time also carried big costs in regards to drugs and other negative factors. But Randy was a South Valley guy. There's been a lot of South Valley talent, in Albuquerque. Not to say that there hasn't been anywhere else, but we're talking a little bit more South Valley. But I think if someone were to do a piece and talk about just music and talk about what bands were around, do you have pictures? because I do. I have some pictures. I mean, we've played with the Coasters. We played with Rick Springfield. We did. What's their names? Average White Band. We've done it with the Average White Band. We've just, played with all of these groups. Back in the day, the Coasters, which were really the more original Coasters with Lionel, came into the Far West, where we used to play 6 nights a week, and we backed them up. The Drifters, I mean, all of these groups. Now they're a little bit changed, but back in the day, there was a lot of, still the, anyway, if someone could really look at that, the development and structure of who played what and why, and who was influenced by who and what and all that kind of stuff, and take some pictures, that's a whole universe, unto itself. Anyway, getting back to South Valley Roots, I have this, it's called The Glider.
Okay.
And this is a story that I wrote, and I grew up, I'm going to give that to you.
Thanks.
I grew up with a lot of people in the neighborhood, and some of my best friends were the Valdezes, Rocky and Albert Valdez. And we used to live in the jungle. And the jungle obviously was the Bosque and the drain ditch area. We used to swim in the drain ditch. That's kind of what that story is talking about. It's talking about the Bosque and the drain ditch and some of the things that we used to do as kids. But that was our forest. That's where we would sneak cigarettes and go over there in the Bosque and smoke cigarettes and cough. Steal green apples from somebody's yard, then go smoke cigarettes and then throw up. I mean, there was all those kinds of fun things. David and Charlie Brown, some of the guys from way back in the day, I can remember vividly how we used to set up ropes on the big cottonwood trees in the Bosque, and we'd get these things and we'd just slide down, We would build huts. We would kind of pull things out, dig the ground up, not too deep, maybe 3-4 feet, and then just put the bushes so nobody knew we were there. And and even if you did it now, you probably couldn't. Well, maybe now you could tell a bit more, but back then you could pass by and we could be there and you wouldn't even know it. I remember very clearly one night when we were going to spend the night in the Bosque, and we got our sleeping blankets and everything, and I think we told our parents we were going to spend it, somebody else's house or whatever. I don't think they would ever let us spend it in the Bosque. But I remember the river, the sound of the river, and we were there, and we said, let's move closer, to the river, and we all moved up, and we were just like, it wasn't quite dark, and it was just beautiful, the shimmer of the light on the water from the sun setting, and the Bosque, and it was just the sound and that smell. It was just, it was just so fragrant, and it was like, wow, this is really life. And I just remember having this thought about this is really fantastic. This is really wonderful. And then all of a sudden we were attacked by 10,000 trillion mosquitoes that we didn't think about. They were not there, and we were there, and it was just cool, and we were just chilling, and all of a sudden, so we had to pick up our stuff, and we had to run and move to a different location. But I'll never forget that night. It was one of those things where, it was so pristine. I remember there were snakes. There were some big water snakes around at that time. Even to this day, even back then, I should say, I can remember me and my uncle. That's where I first learned how to swim, was the Rio Grande. We would take a bunch of us, family, and my uncle would put me on his shoulders. And who knows how deep the water was or where we were. I don't remember. I was too young. But how I learned how to swim was my uncle got me one day and just threw me into the river, and I had to learn how to swim. And it was one of those things where I'm sure he was there. He would have been there to help me, but he sure pissed me off. I'll tell you. I thought, how dare you? Throw me. I was going to drown or whatever. But I did learn how to swim. I can remember back in the day when several of us would try to cross the Borealis Bridge, and we'd get there right into the Sanjo area, and there would be the guys waiting for us, man. Just waiting for us. And we would always have to give something, because we would walk down to the, what was it? It was the pool there by the park. I can't remember the name of the pool.
Over in San Ho?
Huh?
In San Ho?
No. It was a brand new pool right there by the zoo and the park.
Oh, that part.
Yeah.
At the zoo.
I can't remember what the name of it. Anyway, we would have to cross their territory, and so there was always, give up 25 cents or whatever to get into, so we could do the thing. And I remember Rocky, my buddy Rocky and Albert that I grew up with, was always a tough guy, and he would always fight him. He's not going to pay you nothing. I'm coming through. I remember one time me and whoever were by ourselves, and we were walking, and these guys got us, and I remember this guy says, "My little brother can beat the shit out of you." And I'm like, "Whoa." And they took one of my shoes off and they threw it in the river. And I cried, and I went home, and I said, "What happened to your shoe?" And I just cried, and I was so angry, I wanted to get back at him. And I don't think I ever did, but it was like, you had to stop there, because the tough guys wouldn't let you through. Going back, I can remember there was the old Horn building.
Was that in San or Barreras?
Well, it was in Barreras, yeah, Barreras. The old Horn building, I don't know if you recall the old Horn building, on Isleta.
Okay.
It's used to be a YDI facility, but it's now Los Compadres. Los Compadres. That used to be the old Horn building, and we would walk and to go to the movie, which was at La Familia restaurant.
Los Compadres restaurant, right?
Right.
Oh,
right
it's
next
Horn Oil.
Yeah, Horn Oil. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember that. All right.
Right next to the
Yeah,
to the Tasty Freeze.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
The Horn Oil
Yeah.
building.
Okay, I got
So
it.
we would walk there. Matter of fact, that was that little filling station there, gas station, was where my dad would buy
That was Calvin Horn.
Calvin Horn. Exactly.
Okay.
Calvin Horn. God, what is it? White gas? What is white gas? They call it white gas.
Yeah.
There's a name for it.
It's what you put in your Coleman stove.
Yeah, but anyway, they would sell it there. But I remember when I was a kid, Mom and Dad would give us some money to go to the movies, which was, we'd pass by the Horn building on the way to what used to be La Familia restaurant
Right.
by McDonald's there. That was a theater. That's where the theater was.
There's Boys Market after the theater.
Yeah. So we would walk, and at the Horn building, we'd stop and look at the clock to see what time it was, to see how, if we were late for the movie, we had to hurry, or if everything was cool. And then we'd take our 10 cents and we'd go watch a movie. I don't remember the movies that were there, but I remember, we used to walk and do that. We had so many things. We had go-karts, not go-karts with engines, go-karts we made and pushed. And we were firefighters, and we'd start fires, and then we'd go put them out. We had a place, Carlos Trujillo, and Rocky and Albert and I. By the way, Rocky and Albert Valdez. Albert Valdez was Commissioner Valdez.
Okay.
And Rocky Valdez is now the Department Director for Facility Maintenance for Bernalillo County. Those were my grow-up buddies, plus a lot of other ones, but those are kind of the close guys. And we had a place called the Crow's Nest, and it was Carlos's house, and I remember we would sleep there occasionally, and it was our sanctuary, if you will. So a little club, and it was Carlos, me, Rocky, Albert, the Murphys. What was his name? Eddie Murphy.
He's a comedian.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Eddie. Anyway, the Murphys were right close, and they were a large black family. So I remember Murphy was always on his bike, and he was always with Mr. Tough. And anyway, the Crow's Nest, one night, this is what stands out in my mind. We were going to sleep there, but there was no electricity in our little hut. Well, it was actually a little cuartito is what it was. There was no electricity, and we were going to sleep there, and there was some kind of repair on the road. And back in the day, they had these big black coal or whatever kerosene with the little flicker that they put up so that you wouldn't hurt yourself, you wouldn't drive into it. So we lifted about 3 or 4 of those so that we would have some light and a little bit of warmth. And I remember going to sleep and everything. We would talk. It was great. Woke up the next morning, we looked at each other, and we were all black, where we were breathing in all of that stuff. we were all black, and we were like looking at each other and saying, "What happened to you?" And then we didn't know. We said, "Oh, it's these things that caused it," you know. But I mean, we could have died, you know. But it was that kind of stands out in my mind. My family. Oh gosh. My mom and dad. My dad is the Armijos from Socorro, Magdalena. And my mom is Jenny Griego. And she was part of the land grant people. My mom had more of the Spanish side to her. My dad had more of the Mexican, mestizo Indian.
So you're not related to the Armijo, which is the name of the Armijo school, the whole neighborhood is?
I don't think so. I mean, I grew up there, but you know.
This was the Armijo land grant?
It was actually the the one that the big one on the west side.
Atrisco?
Yeah, the Atrisco land grant.
How did it get? Why is it called? It's called Armijo.
The area?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really
There's
don't know.
Armijo school, and there's a sign up right at the bridge that says Armijo crossing.
Yeah, it's the Armijo area.
Yeah.
Who it is named after, I have no idea.
Not
But
you.
if you do some research, let me know.
Okay.
That would be
I was
interesting.
just guessing it was you before I came.
Yeah.
You were part of that family.
I mean, it. I don't know. I really don't know. I know that my dad, like I said, was more for Socorro. My grandfather, he worked in, oh God, it must have been Socorro, with Conrad Hilton, from the Hilton hotels. And my grandfather was a carpenter, and the story that I got was my grandfather helped put the first roof on the first Hilton hotel that Conrad Hilton built here.
San Marcial or the
Yeah.
one here?
The one here in
Downtown.
either here or Socorro, or it was. This is back before.
The first one was in San Marcial, I thought.
Where's that at?
South of Socorro.
That's probably the one.
You know where that black mesa sits off to the side?
Oh, yeah,
coming
yeah.
down by?
That's probably the one. I would imagine.
It washed away in a flood in the 30s or 40s.
Oh wow.
The whole town.
But I remember them saying that, that my grandfather had done that. And this is before Hilton was Hilton. This is just Mr. Hilton, and, he was kind of a big name at that time, but not that big, not like now. Not even close to anything like now. So that's kind of the two sides of my family. What else?
Well, I'm kind of wondering more about the Hispanic culture aspect of growing up in the Valley and how that influenced your music.
Well, again, it's really difficult to say.
I mean, how would you describe your? How do I put this? Your experience. How would you describe yourself to me?
Confused? Actually, when I was growing up, like I kind of alluded to, there was not really a Hispanic, black, white, breakdown.
For example, did your parents speak Spanish in the home?
My parents spoke Spanish in the home for a while, but my dad was very acculturated and basically told us that he didn't want us speaking Spanish at home. My mom didn't like that, but my dad said no, and these are kind of his words. It's a white man's world out there. You need to adapt, to the white man's culture, and I want you to speak fluent, well, good English. I said that good, didn't I? And thanks, Dad. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of held us back from that. My oldest sister, I have 5 sisters, no brothers. I'm the only boy. My oldest sister, second to the oldest. The first 3 of the family, the oldest, they speak relatively well. I'm kind of broken Spanish. My 2 younger sisters, my second, one right under me, she does okay. The youngest one, very little. Understands, I think we all understand. But as far as to be fluent, I would never say that I'm fluent, And part of that was my dad's perception of the world when he was rearing us and where he wanted us to be in society and all that kind of stuff. He was, I said, a musician. and he also was in the 44th Army Band, so he was a National Guardsman till the day he died. You know, he was really involved in that. Back in those days, as far as culture was concerned, I have all my tios and tias, my aunts and aunties. You know, my auntie Lala, who lives in Foothill, and my mom, Jenny Griego, Armijo, sisters. We were very, very close with them. Our home was here. My grandpa's home was here. My uncle's home was here on Riverside in Nashville in La Vega Court. So we really were real close to our grandparents and our uncles and aunts. But as far as anything culturally related, my dad talking about the culture, Hispanic, and saying this, that, it was always a non-issue, if you will. How I have learned more is through my Auntie Lala, my mom's sister, and actually I've taken a recorder and asked her questions about my great grandfather. Was she said, I remember your grandfather telling me that they would sit at the kitchen table, and he was an Apache, and he'd wear the scarf, you know, and whatever. So I learned some stuff about that, and I'm learning a little here and there. But
religious-wise, did you go to St. Anne's?
St. Anne's, yeah.
And were there any kind of holidays, special events that family?
Well, you know, one of the things that, alcohol was a big part of me growing up. My dad would have been considered an alcoholic. My sisters say Mom was too, and I think she was more borderline. There was a lot of drinking that went on. Trips to El Paso to Juarez to get big old gallons of rum. Parties at the house. There was our family. My father was very, very strong-willed, and being a first sergeant major in the National Guard, you can kind of know where he was at. He would become violent at times. Spanking, and again, this is back in the day. You never know if, when you're a kid, you're thinking, well, this is everybody's like this. You don't know. But spanking in the day would be with a belt, and it wouldn't be a couple. It'd be, you know, till you were severely punished. Throwing a boot or a shoe at someone's head was not uncommon with my dad, especially if he was watching the fights and you were making noise. Mom was she was kind of the saint of the family, and just kind of the glue and held everything together. They were pretty much party animals, and
so there's a lot of people coming over.
A lot of people coming over. We lived right next to the Castillos, Victor Castillo, Victor's Pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, his father, Victor, his father and mother are my godparents, and I'm their godchild. And she has since passed, but my Nino is still alive and kicking, still tough. There would be parties there. There'd be parties at our house. Don Lesman, he lived in Old Town. Really, really nice house. You know, big parties there. Alcohol was always a factor, and I saw a lot of what alcohol did to people, and I resented it, I guess. Even though when I was young, early, 1823, I did my fair share of drinking. For whatever reason, because I think of my orientation to what it does, and I've never really been a big drinker. People come over and sometimes say, "You want a beer?" And I don't have any beer to give to anybody. Mm. You know, if I drink, I'm gonna drink some Crown Royal. You know, have me a couple of drinks of Crown Royal, and that about does me. When I play, I really don't drink. Occasionally, I might, you know, have a Crown here and there, but I don't do it at home. I've not done it with my two sons. My sons are 30 and 22 right now, both have families. I don't serve alcohol to them. If they want to bring a beer over, 6-pack, whatever, that's fine with me. You know, it's not a big deal. But we don't do like my family did. We don't party hardy. I was also, can you change that?
That's that way to flip.
And, you know, trying to prevent young people, older people from getting into situations that were harmful to them. And I mentioned I was in Salt Lake City for 12 years. Left in 79, came back in 1991, November 1991, and started working for Youth Development Incorporated, who was my employers way back in the day, 74 to 79, 5 years before I left. And my background is varied. I was a clinician in Salt Lake County Mental Health, working with the child care unit, worked with adult schizophrenics in Salt Lake County Mental Health, a program, have a degree from the University of Utah, you know, graduated old Armijo, not new, old Armijo, Ernie, Pyle, Rio Grande, started the university here when I was 27, and it took me forever because all my friends said, you barely made it through Rio, man. How can you know, you're stupid, you can't do whatever. And I remember I took 3 classes, sociology, psychology, and philosophy. And I made a C in every one of them. That was like an A to me. I thought, hey, I can do this, you know. The philosophy was, that was another thing from where I was at. But anyway, it's like the alcohol and being a preventionist and knowing all that stuff, I became actively involved in the DWI Planning Council for Albuquerque Municipal County in 1992. And also the Albuquerque Partnership, which works with communities to rid negative factors. I'm sure you know where Villalobos, right across the street, there used to be a bar there from Los Compadres, next to the Dairy Queen. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, we used to play there.
Music box.
Yep, the music box. It used to be Don Lesman's music box. He used to own that, and we used to play there way back in the day. But there was a lot of negative stuff, and we helped to shut that down. I was in the DWI Planning Council for 3 years, and then my last 3 years I was chair of that, and we were there was about $3.2 million that we were obligated to put out into the community, roadblocks, you know, those kinds of things. And I was always fighting for prevention. Let's educate our kids. Let's talk about it. You know, let's do all of that kind of stuff. So my point is that I grew up with a lot of alcohol and a lot of violent situations, not only in home but that I could see. And I've always tried to do something about that. And I try to dissuade and tell my fellow peers, you know, you don't always need alcohol to have a good time. Look what it's done to our raza. You know, look at the negative stuff, and I'm not even getting into the other types of abuses that have gone on that, you know, people are starting to, you know, come up at this point in time, the sexual abuse and all those kinds of things. But it's really important to me that we be as balanced as we can, and that we be role models to the young people coming up, you know. So alcohol was very negative.
Some questions about, you went away for 12 years, and you were living in...
Salt Lake City.
No, you were living in the South Valley before you
left. Right.
And you come back, you're back in the South Valley.
Back in the South Valley.
Talk about the changes. The South Valley you're living in today isn't quite the same as the one you grew up in. How would you envision? Tell me about what you think has changed there.
Well, obviously there's more gang activity. There's more gunshots at night. When I left, there wasn't gunshots that I recall. When I came back, there's gunshots. And I don't think, honestly, I think that goes throughout Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, Valencia County, whatever. Sure. I think the negative factor is there. But there was a little bit more of that. It's a little more scary to walk the streets, I think, at night because of people that I see around. I mean, on Nashville, I know there's some gangbangers that live right there. I see them.
Which side of Nashville? It'd
be on the south side of Nashville.
I'm talking about between La Vega and Riverside. There was some serious gangbanging going on the other side of a sled on.
Yeah, I don't... Well, I think that there's...
I'm just checking.
Yeah.
I like to keep up with it there too.
Yeah, right on Nashville. Here's Riverside.
Yeah.
And right on Nashville, it's like the second or third. It's a nice house. But you see guys out there, and there's not like one or two, there's like between 5 and 10. And every time you pass, they're like, they're checking you out, kind of mad dogging you. And I can't say for a fact that they're gangbangers, but they sure as hell, 28 years in social services, they sure look it to me. I'd spent 8 years in residential in the state of Utah with corrections, with kids, hardcore, and I think I know what I'm talking about. But so that was a negative factor. My son, I was playing up at our place, and I came home one night. This is probably in 1996, about 96. And the lights were on at home, and it was like 1:45, and I thought, why are the lights on? And my son, my oldest son, Rome, who was 20-something at the time, had got into an argument with his girlfriend, and he walked down Riverside on Nashville, and some guys jumped him, and they broke a beer bottle over his head and gave him some stitches. And so that was a very unpleasant experience to me, and it always made me think, gee, should you have moved back to this area, And I said, hey, to myself, things are going to happen. They're going to happen. Number one, he should have made a better decision than to go walking at 12 o'clock at night. I don't care where you are. Chill out, talk, whatever, take a drive. But he did what he did. So that was a real negative kind of thing for me. In regards to the people, the gente, everyone's kind of the same. I don't see a real big difference.
Well, for example, a music box was a good example. I mean, you played it. I actually even played that bar 25 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And it was fine, but then by the time you were closing it down, it had completely evolved, and there were lots of shootings, there have been a lot of killings,
Right.
knifings, constant fights, and it had changed. Because it wasn't like that when I played there.
Exactly.
It was kind of a neighborhood bar.
Yeah, it was a happening place. It was a happening place. I remember.
So I'm kind of wondering what changed. Why did it change from being a neighborhood to a place where you're afraid to walk down the street?
Well, I really don't have an answer for that. I can guess, and I think that part of the Don Lesmans of the world, part of the J.J. Armijos, my dads of the world, who cared, and Don Lesman cared about what it was the Don Lesman's music box. He cared about how he ran his business, and when he sold that, whomever it was, Cecil was the guy's name.
Yeah, when I played, it was Phil's music box.
Fields.
I don't remember who Phil was.
I don't remember either. But it's like, I think the mentality for the businessman back then was to make money but run a good establishment. And I think as the years progress, it's like make money, and not think too much about clientele and establishment. Hell, I can't ever remember a bodyguard being at the music box. And I remember close to when it was getting ready to be shut down, they were having they had to have security guards, and it's just like the one up on the Mesa,
Amigusto?
Amigusto, and then the DI lounge. That was a drug haven, and they had to have security guards. So I think the population has changed. I know I don't feel this as much as a lot of my friends do, but they really feel like the Mexican people are just kind of taking over the South Valley, coming from Mexico, and had a very interesting conversation with someone just last week. And what I was saying, well, at least in my mind, the people from Mexico are coming over, but they're hard workers, and they have a good work ethic, and they're willing to do this and that, the other. And this guy says, and he lives with a Mexican woman. He says, no, they're way different. He says, and a lot of the young ones, he says, it's like, and my perception was like blown away, because I was just in a different world. He says, no, they're coming here now expecting, you need to give me this, you need to put me, I need to get on welfare, I need to get on this, and it's a whole different mentality. There's a paradigm shift, I guess, in regards to the way I used to think that the Mexican people were, and the way this gentleman is telling me that this is how they are. And I said, do you think this is it a microcosm, or is it you talking across the board here, or what do you? He said, no, I think a lot of them are. My wife is Caucasian, and I met her in Salt Lake City, and she's always loved the South Valley. She just loves the friendliness and just the way it's always been. But she's made comments also, and she says, man, the Mexican people are just like taking over. You go to Price Right, and she says, my God, and it's like. And I said, well, what? Where do you expect them to go? I mean, what? Isn't this the land of opportunity? Are we going to, And so we get into these kind of debates. She and I, and she's a lot less. She's more open than some of my friends are. My friends, yeah, I'm send them back, man. Some bitches, get them ass back there. This state belongs to us. It's not them, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really. I remember when I was with YDI, we went to D.C. and there was a Hispanic leadership conference there, and we were with people from all the United States, and we got into some squabbles with some of the Latinos from New York, because they were saying, you guys don't even let us into your state, New Mexico, and it's like you this, and whoa, wait a minute, what do you mean you? Who are you talking about? It's not me. You're generalizing, number one. And what is it specifically that you're talking about? But it's like, I started thinking, and of course we had a facilitator and stuff, but I started thinking, man, we got Latinos, we have Hispanics, which the federal government gave us the name. We have Chicanos, there's so many. That's why when you said, who are you? I said, I'm confused.
Yeah.
And really it's how I have evolved has been actually, I think, more in line with the white culture, if you will, more than the Chicano culture, because of my orientation to life through my dad specifically. So he kind of geared me towards that. It's a real potpourri, of experiences in regards to that. So, do you know Chuy Martinez? Mm-hmm. We had through the Albuquerque Partnership, through Moises Venegas and the people from DC. It was from the drug people, drug money, not drug money.
DEA.
Yeah, it was a federal. They wanted to set up a thing here in Albuquerque, and we did it at Barelas Community Center, talking about the Chicanismo and all of the cultural things and how we related or didn't relate and who were we and I said, I want to go, man, because I said I'm confused. I'm a little bit this. It's like that song. I'm a little bit country. I'm a little bit rock and roll. It's like, who the hell am I? But I remember very clearly, and that was the first time that I met Chuy. This is back probably about '92. We talked about it, and we talked about alcohol and how it's always a factor in everything that we did, and why was it? And we talked about abuse, and we said, well, who are we? What am I? Am I Chicano? Am I Hispanic? Am I, Latino? What is this all about? I can't relate to being categorized Latino, because that, the Latin countries is, to me, where Latino comes from. I'm more, the federal government, I'm sure you're well aware of, couldn't find a term, for us, so they started calling us Hispanic, which is, hey, that's okay with me now. It wasn't before, but it's okay now. But the Chicanismo, being the Chicano, you talk to people like I talked to my aunt, Antilala, and she's 70-something, and I said, the Chicanos, and right away she thinks it's like the Chicanos, those are like, those are the problem Spanish people of the world, the Chicanos. In her mind, the interpretation, and maybe it's because of back in the day when Huerta was around, and Cesar Chavez and the Chicanos, she saw that as being negative because they were striking and people were getting hurt and stuff, and in her mind, my God, why are they doing that? She didn't see the big picture of helping people and not being exposed to chemicals and everything that Cesar Chavez was. So it's interesting, the like I said, a potpourri of perceptions that we have, and the South Valley, in my mind, has changed, but not that significantly, in regards to why I still want to live here. and that is that, man, this morning I went to get the paper at 6:15 a.m. and I'm in my robe, and it was cold, but you know what, man, I smell fresh air. I didn't smell pollution like I did in Salt Lake City. You take a breath and you can taste that pollution. There's no pollution. I hear the crows going, to the Bosque. Right at that point, there was not any cars on Riverside. The wind was blowing. It was cold, and I looked down. Oh, it's still chilly, but that's what I love about South Valley. I could not live in the Heights. I couldn't. I'm just not there. I am not there. It's my wife's the same way, and she grew up in Salt Lake City. Oh gosh, it's the eastern part, right by the mountain, and it's a little little more pricey homes. Her dad was modest. He was a baker, and he worked really, really hard, but he was smart, and he bought a nice home in a nice location, and it was beautiful. And she grew up with green and, the mountains there and big old pine trees and stuff, and then she had to come to Albuquerque and see the semi-desert region. But anyway, she loves Albuquerque, and she, like me, said, I couldn't do it. All the traffic up in the Heights, and it's like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, oh, it's on Eubank, and I said, I don't go to Eubank. They said it's on Eubank and San Mateo or something. I said, I don't go to Eubank unless I absolutely have to go. I mean, there's no reason for me to do that. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
I have to go up to Montebello today.
If I have to go, if I have a meeting or, whatever, if I have to do something, I'll do it. But if they say, well, you know what, there's a really neat store up on Montebello, I say, well, it can stay really neat, man. I'm going to stay with my stores here in the...
Joseph was interested. He was talking to me. He said he went to Del Norte High, but they didn't consider themselves to be the Heights. They refused to admit they lived in the Heights. They called themselves the Upper Valley. I kind of relate to that.
That reminded me of, for whatever reason, popped in my... Remember the old A&W on Central? Mm-hmm. That reminded me of when you said Del Norte, I thought of the... Oh, gosh. It's already been a long week for me. There were the Stompers. The Stompers. The Stompers. Do you remember the term, the Stompers?
Cowboys, yeah.
The Cowboys, the Stompers, that's what we used to call them?
We just call them Stomps.
The Stompers from whatever school would meet us at the A&W, and that's who we would throw down. And I remember when Candido Baca, gosh, I don't know why that name came to me, but and he was like tough little, meaty guy, man. And we were there, and they came, and Candido got out of the car, and these other guys got out of the car, and we're all standing there. And this guy, I remember, hit Candido one time, and Candido went, and I remember he hit his head on the bumper of the car, boom! I'm going, whoa! And we're like saying, hey, get up! And these guys are like, and all of a sudden, you hear sirens coming, the old sirens. Your sirens coming, so we all got in our vehicles. Not in our vehicles. We all got into the one or two vehicles that we had piled in. And I remember Jack, who's our sax player, Jack Ayala, who lives in Adobe Acres now, but grew up right there in La Vega, by Roscoe's drugstore, right there, the Ayalas. Anyway, we were taking off, and we stopped, and the cops were coming, and Jack took off running. And I remember, I literally saw him jump that fence at the country club. That, whatever it is, 8-foot fence. I remember, he jumped it. I remember he jumped it. I'm like, whoa. And, I remember so many times where the sheriff's deputies were, for whatever reason, chasing us. I don't know why. There was nothing ever that we did really that was really, really bad, other than, maybe get into fights. Dancette, do you remember Dancette? Do you remember Sidro, Garcia, the Sneakers?
Yeah, I remember Sidro.
They used to play Dancette. And I remember we used to go to Dancette, and we used to try to sneak in quarts of beer in our jackets. Tom Barsanti. Remember Tom Barsanti? Tom Barsanti had a band, oh gosh. I wonder if that's the same Tom that had that Grammy. That he had an Indian?
Oh, Tom B?
I wonder if that's Tommy Barsanti. I just snapped out. But anyway, back in the day, he had a band, and we had a band, the Chekkers, and we played a lot. But there was Dancette, Sidro Garcia played. Sidro Garcia, there was a group that after the Chekkers I became involved with by the name of the Czars, Czars, and the Czars, through Sidro Garcia, who was playing Lake Tahoe, Vegas, and all that stuff, and it was Sidro Garcia before it was the Armada.
Was Sidro from El Paso?
No, Mountaineer.
Because I remember him playing El Paso all the time too.
He probably did. Yeah, he went to U of A. He graduated from the University of Albuquerque. But Sidro basically opened the doors for a lot of groups because the Czars went to Lake Tahoe, and I was with the Czars, and we backed up this guy named Jim Burgett, and he was kind of a local Lake Tahoe kind of talent, and we played at Harrah's in Lake Tahoe, and then we came back to Burgett, and that's when we were playing Leo's the Rock.
Oh, boy, I hadn't thought of that in a long time, yeah.
And we changed our name to the Spinning Wheel. So from the Czars, we became the Spinning Wheel.
I remember seeing your name up on the marquee.
Yep. And then
Rock.
I went back to Lake Tahoe, and I left the Spinning Wheel, and I became involved with Sloopy and the Red Barons, a show group. And I was with them, gosh, for 3 years, and we did it all. Across the United States, Hawaii, Canada.
Is that Snoopy or Sloopy?
Sloopy.
That's what I thought, Sloopy, like
Yeah.
hang on.
Yeah, Sloopy and the Red Barons. She was a little petite showgirl. She was a hell of a dancer, very good comedian, singer okay. We kind of picked up the slack for that, but she was just a real showgirl. And we had, the usual show stuff that we did. We played here in Albuquerque at the Sundowner. And this is back when it was, a nice place. The Sundowner Lounge, and how we would do it is you'd come in and you do your first first set, and then you go and you change, and then boom, the lights would come on, and and then the whole thing would, you do your show stuff. But we did that, and then my dad was sick. In '73, I came off the road, and then he passed away, his 5th heart attack. But that's when I quit the road and came to Albuquerque and decided I needed to get a real job. So I did my Fuller Brush, and
When you went to UNM?
actually no, I was 27 when I was UNM. So 73, I got married in 70, and I was 23. Yeah, but it was a year after. Maybe I was 28 when I started UNM.
Your Fuller Brush, huh?
Yeah, I did my Fuller Brush thing, man.
In the 70s?
Yep.
Do you know a guy named Clark Hanlon?
Oh boy, I don't.
My wife's uncle. He was a Fuller
Oh,
Brush
really?
salesman in Albuquerque in the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did the Fuller Brush, did the rainbow vacuum cleaner thing, did my stint, selling rainbow vacuum cleaners, and then with a letter of reference from Al Sanchez, because we did a lot of stuff with
I'll
Al.
interview him on this tour too.
Yeah, Al. Actually, we were in the National Guard with Al. Me and Jack and all the guys in the Air National Guard. And Maury, Tiny Maury. And Brother Gaby, all 3 of them. And Al used to like, back in the day, they'd have, remember the Palladium on Central? He'd have dances there, so it would be like Al Hurricane and then the Chekkers. It kind of a double bill. And then Al Hurricane would bring people in like Fats Domino and Little Richard. I remember Bennie Sanchez, the brains behind El Hurricane, mom. I remember.
I interviewed her about 10 years ago.
Did you?
A wonderful interview.
She's such a lady. She got me backstage in 1965 when I met James Brown, or 62, I don't remember which, 62. But that was, James Brown was, still.
I can relate. When I was 13, I wanted to be the drummer in James Brown's band. That was my life dream.
On the 1 and the 3.
Yeah.
3 hand. But I met James Brown through Bennie Sanchez, and got backstage, and and talk to them. Actually, you know what? They did a piece on the band in Transmission magazine. Have you ever heard of Transmission?
Mm-hmm.
It's a New Mexico music magazine. I might.
Is it new or old?
Ours came out in August, I believe. We were the front cover.
Must have been August.
August
So
of
it's
this
probably
year.
still around. August 2002. Okay. So
Yeah, that and
Where are they at?
I don't know.
I'll ask around.
I think it was off of West Central, 56, 59th Street or something. But Steve is the guy's name. Steve Mays?
Steve Mays, I know him.
Steve
Guitar
Mays?
player.
Maybe I'm thinking of something. Oh, look at it. I might even have a copy of it somewhere, the article.
Steve Mays, jazz guitar player? Not,
It may
not our
not
age.
be it may not be Mays. I only spoke with him on the phone. I never really
Well, I
met
can
him.
imagine Steve doing something like that.
Yeah, and one of his editorials was, people say Transmission magazine, is this mechanics or what? And he says, don't people understand audio transmission? You know, because my first thought was that Transmission magazine, and then after I read his article, the editorial, I thought, well, yeah, you know, makes sense, but it's a little out there for me. But anyway, yeah. So
Well, I think I need to wrap up here because I got to get to
Okay.
the reader.
You got
on
it.
the road. Anything you want to add at all? To
how are you going to do this, and how is it all coming together?
well, basically, I have to get a release form to you.
Mm-hmm.
We're basically all these tapes I'm making are going to go into the Albuquerque Museum for archival. So if anybody wants to listen to your voice 30 years from now, they can
Oh, I see.
listen to this. But that won't be available unless you sign a permission sheet. Otherwise, it'll just sit there on the shelf and it'll just be there. Nobody will be able to listen to it.
Okay. Yeah.
But what I'm going to do is write up kind of the notes of what you've done, and then we're going to write a big report about the Hispanic experience in Albuquerque that we're going to give to the city.
And can we get a
Along
copy?
with the needs. Sure.
Okay, yeah,
So,
I'd like a copy. Definitely.
it's going to feature all the cultures in Albuquerque. It's going to have a section on the, say, East Indian population. Actually, like to be called Indians, even though they're from India, which makes sense, actually. You get confused with the Isletans. The Vietnamese people who've chosen to settle in Southeast Heights, we're interviewing a lot of them to find out what their experience is like here.
Well, that's neat.
And the idea is just to give us a sense of who we are at this place and time and what the community needs are. Which I should have asked you, what do you consider something that, we've asked a lot of these communities what they need, and they all would pretty much like community centers of sorts. So.
Well, actually, and I've been talking about this ever since I've been here, is I'd like to see community service centers, not just community centers, because I think we're past community centers. It's 2002, and in a lot of people's minds, the mentality is a community center does, whatever it is in their mind. A community service center, I think, should do more for the community. We do recreation here, we do education. I have a life skills program that we do with the kids where we talk about checkbooks, we talk about therms, wattage, we talk about the Bosque, we talk about words like flora, fauna, meandering, we talk about uplift, we talk about fluvial fans, in a way that the kids can relate. So there's an educational process that happens here, plus recreation, plus safety, plus security for mom and dad to know their kids when they're here in our before or after school program are safe and secure. We have a financial program that if you can't quite make it, we'll help you out, either free or reduced. To be free, you pretty much have to be indigent. But so there's a lot of stuff that we do here, but it'd be nice to have a food stamp program here. It'd be nice to have, I want that building next door, it's a dental building, and they're going to be moving, I think, to Centro Familiar. I want that to be the Los Padillas Performing Arts Center. I'd like to have, and it's huge, guitar, piano, keyboard, vocal,
percussion.
Have that whole thing, because part of what I haven't done it, I won't take responsibility for that. Our code of conduct says I will take responsibility for my actions. It's the first principle. I'm not going to take responsibility for this one. Is that art and music have been pulled from our schools, and where are our kids getting it from? And that's why I try in my little way to give as much as I can, to the community. in that. But if we can get that, then to heck with the school. We'll do our own thing. You know, to me, if the need is there in the community and whoever isn't fulfilling that need, then it's my responsibility to plug in and to the best of my ability, at whatever degree or percent I can do, fulfill that need for our kids. You know, our culture, our music is so much a part of our culture. You know, from rancheras to James Brown, you know, to the cordion, which I don't care for personally, but my mom loved it, to the accordion, to all of those kinds of things, you know. And our kids are losing it. It's like I was talking about the music box and the mentality of the businessman. It's like clean, good establishment, then it goes and it's make money, make money. Well, this is what I see us doing with our music. It's like nobody's really caring that much about it. And they're saying, well, it's reading, writing. Reading, writing. Some of these kids, they come into our center at second grade, can't even write their own name. So don't talk to me about reading and writing. You know, that's another story. By the way, my sister's the APS board member for the South Valley, Dolores Herrera.
Oh, I know her.
You know Dolores. Anyway, that's a whole different story.
She's your sister? Or
She's my
mom?
sister.
She's your
Sister, yeah. She's right under me.
So she grew up on the Riverside too?
Yep. Well, they're in La Vega Court. That's where we all grew up. My youngest sister, Cecilia, has a mansion there. Right there in La Vega Court with my...
I think she's the one I used to flirt with.